Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. For stopping by here. We are just getting started here with the stream, so bear with me. Yellowstone Park Fan TV, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Doug Wilson, good to see you. Blue Fat Crab, nice to see you. Kelly, thank you so much for tuning in. Carl, good to see you. Paul, thank you so much for tuning in. Patty Whack, thank you so much for stopping by. Guys, let me know if you can hear me loud and clear in the live chat, please. Thank you. Dog, thank you so much for tuning in. Joshua, Shazzer, David. David Noble says Balloonapalooza 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yes, indeed, we are back here tracking more objects in our skies. I have a ton of news to go over with you guys this evening. We're just getting started, though. We're currently waiting on a Pentagon briefing here, which is about to start. And we're going to be watching that together. We'll all be taking a look at that Pentagon briefing, seeing what they have to say. John Buckler, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for letting me know that I can be heard loud and clear by you guys. Christopher Ryan, thank you so much for tuning in. Christopher Ryan says, good old Nemico, I wish stuff would stop happening for you to cover, to be honest. Yeah, today was supposed to be a Super Bowl Sunday. Instead, we are here with Unidentified Object Sunday. So we'll be, again, I'll be covering all of that. We'll be getting everybody up to speed and what's going on. We'll be looking into some of the reports that have come out about this situation. There's a lot of news. There's a monumental torrent of news, so much so that it couldn't wait until Wednesday's weekly live report. I needed to get on here and start covering this. The demand was too much. Snow Chains, thank you so much for tuning in. Represent. Sports is overrated, says Paul. I think some would disagree. I know quite a few people were concerned that this news was going to overtake Super Bowl Sunday, and it seems to already be doing so. Shay says, can I fly my drone? I don't know if right now would be a good time to be out there flying drones. Patrick says, happy UFO Sunday, he says. So yeah, we have multiple reports here. So we don't just have one object here. There are now a torrent of objects being reported, being shot down, not only over North American airspace, but other countries as well. China is reporting, I'm not sure if it's one or multiple UFOs here. I've been hearing conflicting reports, unidentified objects that they are tracking and proceeding to shoot down over their airspace. So it's not just the U.S. here. China's also getting in on the action here. So there's all sorts of reports here and information here coming out over the past 48 hours. So we're going to be going through and kind of covering all of that here. First things first is, again, we're waiting for this Pentagon news briefing to come on, see what they have to say about the most recent object that was shot down just hours ago over Lake Huron in between Michigan and Ontario here in the United States. In fact, on radar, you guys could see the flight path here of United States military Boeing E-3B Sentry that was sent to the region earlier and was doing some holding patterns in the area. So again, Lake Huron is here on the map. For those that don't know, that E-3 Sentry was sent to the area to do some holding patterns, and some interesting flight characteristics came from that. We also got a C-30J, C-130J-30, sorry, in the air tonight. Call sign Cheat 52. We also have a Boeing C-48 Clipper in the air as well. These are all United States military aircraft that I'm showing you on screen, plus a slew of other military aircraft that are currently in the skies. Zay K47, thank you so much for tuning in. Joshua says it's Super Bowl Sunday. Go Chiefs! Angelina, thank you so much for tuning in. Doug Wilson says it's the Chinese. So yeah, again, that's the main theory here is that this could either be Chinese or Russian aircraft of some kind in our airspace. However, what's interesting is that earlier today we're getting reports out of China that China is tracking their own unidentified objects currently in their airspace and are looking to shoot them down. So that's very interesting indeed, and I'll be going into some of those reports here shortly. HG Twisted, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Doom Pie, thank you so much for stopping by. Eriz106, nice to see you. Says at least they're keeping our fighter jets busy. Those guys haven't had anything to shoot at for decades. Well, at least over U.S. airspace they haven't, that's for sure. Ms. Liz, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Ukden, nice to see you. Evan B, thank you so much for tuning in. Says counter balloon, you never know. Leroy Jenkins, so happy to have you tuning in this evening. Says Nemico, are you scared? I am scared, he says. Well, Leroy, I don't know if I'm fearful yet, but definitely slightly concerned by the activity reported over the past 48 to 72 hours. We've, again, been having some interesting activity occurring in our skies, so we will be, again, taking a look at all of those reports here over the course of the evening. Again, we're just getting started here. Right now, as Paddywhack asks, press conference? Yes, we have a Pentagon news briefing here, which is about to go live, and they'll be giving us some information about the object shot down over Lake Huron in between Michigan and Ontario. That's coming here shortly, so again, we're waiting for that. In the meantime, we're kind of just talking to you guys in the chat, answering some questions. And then we'll be diving into all of the reports, all the open source intelligence data that we have. Blue Frat Crab says, wait, there's one in Michigan near me? Yes, there was one over Lake Huron, not over Michigan from what I can tell, but over Lake Huron off the coast of Michigan. Randall, thank you so much for tuning in. Missy J says, tune in from Canada. I hope you're staying warm up there, Missy J, in Canada. Not sure, thank you so much for tuning in. Says, not sure, says, I heard Shanghai has a report of an object. Yeah, so China is also reporting these objects in their skies today, guys, and are even coming out with press releases saying that they're going to shoot them down if they haven't already. Sarah's Simply Crochet and More says, been having fighter jets flying Wisconsin skies in the last couple of days. Yes, I know I've heard a lot of reports from people from all over the country saying that they've been seeing a lot of activity from military aircraft in their areas. Visions of Valkyrie, good to see you. Bryce Sands, nice to see you. Crazy Color says, I've not been here since the early days of the Ukraine conflict, but glad to see that you're still going live with updates. Yeah, I originally wasn't going to cover this situation until this week's live weekly report on Wednesday, but the amount of news coming out, the amount of reports that I've been bombarded with over the past 24 to 48 hours is substantial to say the least, and so the urge to go live and cover this for you guys became too great. So again, we are here, and I'm going to be going through all of the information this evening as we take a look at and track these many different objects which have been spotted over not only North America but many other areas of the globe. I'll be breaking everything down for you guys, giving you guys all of the latest information on what is going on. Of course, again, just to remind everybody that's tuning in, we are currently waiting on this Pentagon press briefing to begin here shortly. So that's what we're waiting for right now. Matt says, Nemico, are you rooting for the Eagles? I don't know if I want to disclose any information here as pertaining to the Super Bowl. I would rather not lose any viewers on the opposite side of the spectrum. Austin Husky says, Nemico, it's the blanks, a word I won't use on this stream this evening. They're coming to suck up the cows of every country. You never know. Again, we're going to try to keep this a facts-based and rational, logical stream this evening as much as humanly possible. I know there's a lot of hysteria right now, a lot of excitement around these reports that have been coming out. Also, a lot of fear and concern over these reports that we've been seeing over the past 48 to 72 hours, especially the news that's come in over just the past 24 to 48. There's been a lot of a lot of activity that has occurred, to say the least. Cornelius says in the Discord, says the Pentagon briefing is now at 7:15 Eastern Time, so we do have a little bit to wait here for that Pentagon briefing, so I might, again, go ahead and start showing you guys some other content here. In fact, I'm going to ask people in the Discord to PM me when that Pentagon briefing is going live, so if I click out of that window and show you guys some other content, I'll know when that is going live. Balloon Expert, trust me, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Glad to see you back. Austin, thank you so much for tuning in. 9, good to see you. Missy J, Steve Canyon. Bob Ross, always good to see Bob Ross tuning into the chat. Speed and Violence, thank you so much for tuning in. Asks a excellent question. Are they all balloons or something else? So, the two balloons that were confirmed last week, so the Chinese spy balloons that were confirmed over U.S. airspace. Well, there was one over U.S. airspace and the other one was over Latin America. Those were confirmed to be balloons. Now, these objects shot down over Alaska and Canada, the U.S. Department of Defense and the Pentagon are being very careful in their wording. They're not calling them balloons. These, from what I understand, these are not balloons. All of these objects that have been shot down, the one over Alaska, the one over the Yukon, and the one over Huron today. And as well, I should mention we also had some activity last night over Montana with some what NORAD called some radar anomalies, air quotes. So there's not just the confirmed objects that have been shot down, but we also have the radar anomalies that were detected over Montana, and also there was an airspace closure over Montana as well. Cyberstorm in the Discord says, "Wait, they are interrupting the Super Bowl for a press briefing." I doubt they'd be interrupting it on main sports channels, but it does look like that time is going to conflict possibly with that. With the Super Bowl time slot there and this Pentagon briefing, I'm not exactly sure here. Some people asking, we're asking about the Alaska object and the Yukon object. They were described to be cylindrical in shape, so cylindrical in shape and about the size of a car, compared to the Chinese balloon, which was the size of about 3 school buses. These are considerably smaller. You could say they're the size of an aircraft, of a plane or a fighter jet, maybe a little smaller than that. There's many different theories, which I'll get into later in the show. There's 2 big plausible theories here. Actually, I should say 3 plausible theories as to what would explain these reports. And again, I'll be covering that later in the show this evening in depth. For everybody that's just tuning in, again, thank you guys so much for stopping by. We're just getting started here this evening. We're currently waiting on this Pentagon press briefing to begin. Until then, I'm kind of going through, getting stuff set up, talking to you guys in chat, answering questions. We have a lot of news to go over. Steve says, does anyone see any pics or vids of these things? No, there are no videos or pictures yet that the government has released. Of course, we had pictures and video of the spy balloon. They were very quick to show us the wreckage of the spy balloon. They have not shown us any wreckage, any photos, or any images of any of these objects that have been shot down, including but not limited to, you have the Alaska object. The object over Yukon, Canada, the one shot down over Lake Huron today. Again, the reports of radar anomalies over Montana. There is a lot of information right now. There's a lot of things going on. Again, for everyone that's just tuning in, if you guys really quickly can go ahead and just smash the like button, or I think some people were saying earlier to probe the like button. It would help us a ton, guys. Again, to get the algorithm's attention, get this information out to other people. So again, as we get started here, guys, as everybody's piling in on the stream here, hit that like button, share the stream, click subscribe if you haven't already. It's the only way to join the live chat on the YouTube live stream. Epi Moo, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Glad to have you stopping by this evening. Pocket Frog, also good to see you as well. Steve, Marcia, Joe, Hash T. To all you guys tuning in, stopping by tonight, thank you so much. Again, we're just getting started here, going through the information here that is coming in very rapidly over, again, the past 48 hours or so here. Not sure says I'm in Australia and very behind. Well, not sure. At least you're tuning in and you're going to get all the information. You're going to get all the same information that we're getting this evening. Patty Wax says, sorry, lost connection. Well, Patty, I hope you're tuning back in and hope your connection's good. Greg Sparks, thank you so much for tuning in. So yeah, again, a lot of this is breaking news that I'll be bringing you guys tonight. This is all a developing story, so we got to keep that in mind as we progress here. As I bring you this information, keep in mind this is a lot of this is breaking news. A lot of this is stuff that's still very kind of up in the air, unconfirmed. We don't know what these objects are. The fact of the matter that the U.S. is referring to them as objects and is being very careful in their wording, that is concerning within itself. We're going to start here. So I want to get a map. My plan is to get a map here up and operational for you guys. So that's my my main goal right now is to get a map up on screen that we're going to then go and kind of break down where all these objects have been spotted and shot down over the United States and Canada. I should say it's North America, I should say. Astro369 says, how many balloons do we need to pop to win this war? Again, just to reiterate here, the most recent objects, these past three, are not balloons, from what we've heard, or at least the Pentagon isn't referring to them as balloons. Again, there are multiple theories as to what's going on here, and of course I'll be getting into that here shortly, very shortly here. Right now, I'm trying to get some, trying to get a map up here that we're going to then use to kind of plot out some of this information here. As best as humanly possible. Missy J, thank you so much for tuning in. Says, did they shoot down the one in Latin America? I'm not sure if that was ever confirmed, if they shot it down, but it was confirmed to be there. Was confirmed to be a Chinese spy balloon by the U.S. Department of Defense. They did say that was indeed a Chinese spy balloon. I'm not sure if they shot that one down or not. Again, there was the two balloons that were confirmed. The one that was shot down off of Myrtle Beach here in the United States, and then the one over Latin America as well. Jack Ball TV, thanks so much for tuning in. Says, so the live conference is at 7:15 Eastern Standard. Yes, it is. It's coming up here very shortly. We are waiting now to see that Pentagon press briefing. In the meantime, I'm getting a few things together here for you guys so I can kind of lay out some of this information for you and kind of plot out where these objects have been spotted over the different areas here in North America. So just bear with me here, everybody. Ronnie says, where's Will Smith when you need him? Jason Dickerson says, probing to assess capabilities, possibly. Laser Flexer says, what does it cost to float a latex balloon full of hydrogen versus the cost to scramble an F-22 and deploy a Sidewinder missile, plus all the surveillance, diplomat, executive attention, etc.? Very good point. However, when it is a matter of possible national security here, I guess that's the concern here that they've been making. Okay, so again, just bear with me here, guys. I'm getting some stuff together here so I can show you. Jack DeWitt says, could all these objects be a misleader while other nefarious plans are in the works? Possibly. Again, there's many different theories which I'll be going into here later in the show. Later in tonight's stream, we'll be kind of going through all of the possible culprits here. Typhoid Larry, thank you so much for tuning in. John McGeaney, nice to see you. Crypto Santa Claus, good to see you back here. Gnostic Man, thank you so much for tuning in. Eric Henry, nice to see you. Says, thanks for doing this. Appreciate your effort for keeping us up to date. Well, don't worry, Eric. I'm just getting started here this evening on getting you guys all updated here. We are literally just getting going here. I've just started the stream here, and I don't think we've even been live for... we've been live for 24 minutes here. I'm still getting everything set up here in the background. There's so much information that I have to go through tonight. Synex, yes, I do have the Pentagon news briefing up. We are currently waiting for the stream to go live here. again, just bear with me here, guys, as I'm getting some stuff here going in the background. XXXILD, yes, you didn't miss anything yet. We are just getting started here. I'm just getting ready to rock and roll here, guys, and go through some of this information with you. I'm just getting a map together here so that we can kind of talk about and plot out some of these different 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 events here, that I should say, that have occurred over the past 48 to 72 hours here. Okay, so Bob Ross says, need map of the jet stream too. Maybe I'll get that in there as well. C. Wells asks, what time is the press conference? It's coming up here in the next, I would say, about 20 to 30 minutes or so. So again, right now, for everybody that doesn't know, we are currently waiting on this Pentagon press briefing to begin. I'm also getting a map here together to show you guys, to kind of plot out all of these events that have occurred over the past. Actually, we're going right back into last week as well with the spy balloons. So just bear with me here, everybody. I'll be with you in just a moment. Yep, we got that as well. All right, so Greg Sparks, good to see you. To everybody that's tuning in this evening, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Again, I'm just getting started here as we begin to break down and track all of this activity, which has been occurring here in our airspace over the past few days here. Let's get Flight Radar 24 refreshed here. Okay, so I think what I might do is get the map, that map up on screen for us here at some point. First, I need to get my dashboard back up here on screen. Pocket Frog says, send a firework at the balloons. Well, again, to reiterate, I should say that these three most recent objects are not balloons. At least the Pentagon has been very specific to call them objects and not balloons. From what I've gathered, they are not balloons. WLO asks, how are we supposed to see what's going on in all those tiny boxes? Well, the stream is built for large screens. However, if you stick around here, I will be going into detail here, showing you guys everything individually. So it's not going to actually let me watch the Pentagon stream. I believe we need to get another one up here on stream. Okay, we'll watch these videos here shortly, but first I want to get that Pentagon stream up. This is the same one, I believe.
So I just switched to Verizon.
Let's mute that. If anybody has an alternative Pentagon news briefing stream in the Discord, if you guys want to link that over to me, I can get that up on screen here. I just want to make sure that this is going to work for us. Ethan number C137, thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, I would really like to find an alternative Pentagon news briefing stream here. So that's one of my priorities here. Eris asks, could the objects be Santa Claus? That's a good question. You never know. So first things first here, trying to figure out why this is not letting me put this up on screen for you guys here. Okay, so I guess this will have to do. Still not wanting to show up on screen. Trying to get this map up on screen that I have for you guys. Victoria Neeson asks, hasn't some part of U.S. airspace been closed? Yes, we've had airspace closures over Lake Huron. We've had airspace closures over over Montana as well. There we go. So at least I'll be able to show that here shortly. I was hoping to be able to draw on the image so I could show you guys certain things, but as long as we have a cursor, I think that'll be good enough. Yeah, that'll definitely do. Okay. So let's go back over to our, so yeah, the briefing is still getting going here. So somebody in the Discord, I believe, sent a, let me check it. Let me double check it here. Pentagon press briefing, good. Okay, so we'll be able to get that up on screen for you guys here. An alternate source here for that Pentagon briefing.
Hi there, Nicole Grigg with ABC 15 here.
Okay, we're going to mute that there. "7:15 Eastern Time is the Pentagon update on the fourth object being shot down." So we'll be able to get that up on screen here for you guys here shortly. Sewell says, "Do you think they are just drones?" That is a definite possibility. The objects over Alaska and the Yukon, more likely that they are drones. However, what leads me to believe that it could be not drones for some of these objects is the objects spotted possibly over Montana, which again was attributed to a radar anomaly, even though they scrambled F-35s to go and check it out. The governor there was pretty adamant in saying that he thinks that that there was an object spotted over Montana, that there was an object in the airspace there. But the object over Lake Huron that was shot down earlier, part of me believes, if it was a foreign adversary drone, most likely from Russia, that would explain the two objects over Alaska and the Yukon, because they're within flight distance, from a medium-sized drone from Russia. However, something as far as Lake Huron, I don't believe that would be a drone, at least one sent from a foreign adversary. However, I could be wrong, and hopefully the Pentagon news briefing here shortly will be giving us some more information. I actually have a report here that I can read you guys. It says, today at 2:42 p.m., at the direction of President Biden and based on the recommendation of Secretary Austin and military leadership, an F-16, not an F-22 Raptor, which is interesting, But an F-16 fired an AIM-9X to successfully shoot down an airborne object flying at approximately 20,000 feet altitude in U.S. airspace over Lake Huron in the state of Michigan. Its path and altitude raised concerns, including that it could be a hazard to civilian aviation. The location chosen for this shootdown afforded us the opportunity to avoid impact to people on the ground while improving chances of debris recovery. There are no indications of any civilians hurt or otherwise affected. North American Aerospace Defense Command detected the object Sunday morning and has maintained visual and radar tracking of it. Based on its flight path and data, we can reasonably connect this object to the radar signal picked up over Montana. So that was last night's radar anomaly. Which flew in proximity to sensitive DoD sites. We did not assess it to be a kinetic military threat or to anything on the ground, but assess it was a safety flight hazard and a threat due to its potential surveillance capabilities. Our team will now work to recover the object in an effort to learn more. Nemico says, I don't think it's a live video. I heard it was a phone briefing. Well, we will see here shortly. Again, around 7:15 is this Pentagon briefing. So coming up here in about 20 minutes, the Pentagon briefing will be going live here. Samsky says, been too long without answers. I agree. The Alaska object was on Friday. They shot that down. We still don't have any information on what that could have been. My goal here is to basically just talk to you guys in chat until the Pentagon briefing. After the Pentagon briefing, we're gonna go and jump into a deep dive of first we're gonna look at all of the video reports, all of the articles and stuff that have come out from over the past 4 days or so, and just kind of chronologically laying out all of these different events that have occurred, taking a look at all of the reports, all of that information, and then I'll kind of go into a map that I have up on screen here. We'll get that blown up for you guys, so I could show you kind of you know chronologically on a map when and where these objects were detected and when they were shot down. Daniel Max says, I think all this is a big attention diversion, Nemico. Some crazy stuff going on, and this is a strategic way to divert the news cycle. That's definitely a possibility. Some other people are contributing this to a political, some maybe politically motivated, but again, nobody knows as of now exactly what we're dealing with here. And I'm hoping that this Pentagon briefing here at 7:15 maybe give us some tidbits of information. However, it's hard to know for sure. Nonetheless, we do have a monumental amount of information here that has been coming in, so we'll be going through all of that nonetheless. John Bull says, otherwise, it's not blank word I won't mention during the stream. I think we can put that one to bed. Again, there's many different possibilities here. The internet has been in a frenzy over this news over the past 48 hours, and especially today, people are after this third object being shot down over Lake Huron. That's 3 objects in a row, not to mention the spy balloons from last week. So this is kind of a big event here occurring, and again, everybody's kind of in a frenzy right now, trying to kind of guess what's going on here. Trying to put these their own theories. Pitch in their own theories here, so to speak. And again, there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation. We're going to be kind of filtering through all of that, kind of laying everything out for you guys. Yeah, a lot of people like Jolene here, with that report from Ohio, talking about dead cattle and stuff. Stuff like that, after that massive catastrophic train derailment there, a lot of people saying, this could be a distraction from the derailment that occurred. I've heard that theory quite a bit today. The Hemwick Hag says this is an escalation event to World War III. Well, we hope not, but this is definitely an escalation. These threats and incursions into our airspace, that is for sure. So again, we are about 15 minutes out here from that Pentagon news briefing, and we'll be seeing what they say about this most recent object that's been shot down over Lake Huron. Patrick Marcy says airspace is closed over the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure I think that's a normal operating procedure for the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken there. That's really quickly. While we are waiting for this Pentagon news briefing to get started, I could play for you guys some of the videos from the other reports and objects that have been spotted over the past few days. Actually, really quickly, R. Odd asks how many UFOs have been shot down. 3 so far, possibly more. Also, China is reporting that they have spotted UFOs in their skies just in the past few hours here. There are reports coming out of China that they are tracking a unidentified object and that they are going to proceed to shoot it down. So that's fresh in the news here over the past few hours here. Andrew S. says 4 confirmed down. You have the spy balloon that was confirmed down, and then the 3 objects. I'm not sure if there was a 4th object separate from the 3 objects that have been shot down over the U.S. and Canada. Patty Wax says, Nemico, did something happen today in New Mexico? I don't know. I have not heard of any activity in New Mexico as of today. Crypto Santa Claus says, Nemico, didn't Justin Trudeau tweet about the Yukon object finding earlier today? Yes, he has made a few statements about the object in the Yukon that was shot down there by the U.S. Air Force, I believe, was who shot that down in Canada. Steve Candy, thank you so much for tuning in. Says, where's the Goodyear blimp? That's a good one. James Austin says China has been saying they've detected one for about 12 hours. So yeah, going back to about the 12-hour mark. Apparently, China has been tracking these objects. Again, we heard updates in the past few hours here that they were possibly looking to shoot that down. I'm not sure if they already downed it or not. I'll be looking into that here later in the show. We'll cover the other objects which have been spotted. There's not just China, but there's been a few other countries that have reported some unidentified objects in their airspace over the past 48 to 72 hours. So there's a lot. As I said before, there's a torrent of information here. There's a lot of misinformation as well. So we're going to try to filter through a lot of that. Helena says they said they would be able to recover debris. Why have we not heard anything after that claim? That's a very good question, Helena, and especially with the Alaska object, which came last Friday, which was shot down last Friday. We haven't heard anything, seen any photos or anything about that. I don't think we've even had an update, an official update at least, on that object, other than as last I heard, they were still recovering debris from that object being down over that sea ice in Alaska there. So really quickly, let's take a look at some of these. Let's take a look at some of the videos I have for you guys real quick while we're waiting for this Pentagon press briefing. We'll take a look at some of the videos we have from some of the other reports.
New this hour, dramatic new details about the unidentified object shot down by fighter jets just miles off the coast of Alaska yesterday. Unlike the Chinese spy balloon shot down last Saturday, this object demanded more immediate action yesterday. Officials say it was flying much lower at 40,000 feet, making it a dangerous potential threat to civilian aircraft. But now we are learning that U.S. military pilots who approached the craft have given conflicting accounts of what they saw. This new reporting coming in now from CNN national security reporter Natasha Bertrand. Natasha, so this is interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
And what do we know about the efforts to recover the wreckage of this second object? It looks like NORAD just put out an email a short time ago, and it sounds like they're trying to recover it.
They did, and what we were told yesterday is that the object was shot down over frozen water, so it landed on the ice, essentially. We don't know what kind of condition it's in, whether it is intact, for example, but recovery efforts have been launched, and according to the Defense Department, they have been able to recover a significant amount of debris. Now, notably, they still don't know what this object is, where it came from, or even what direction it was headed in, or what direction it came from. It is just all very murky at this point, but they do say that the FBI is going to be taking the lead on analyzing the debris. If that sounds familiar, it's because just last week we saw that another Chinese spy balloon, I should say a Chinese spy balloon, because we don't know what this one actually is,
right,
was shot down, also being analyzed by the FBI. But right now, there are just so many more questions than answers, Jim.
Yeah, and as the hours go on, it gets more and more mysterious. All right, Natasha Bertrand, thank you very much. Let's bring in former CIA operative Bob Baer. Bob, I mean, this is starting to sound like something out of the X-Files. I don't want to get carried away here, but what do you make of these different assessments coming in from the pilots of what they saw?
Well, Jim, the speed of those airplanes, F-35s, it's no wonder they all saw different things. And as far as intercepting communications to that vehicle, it's very difficult. I don't want to get too technical, but it could be, frequency hopping, the propulsion. There's so many questions out there that you're absolutely right. Not until they actually go through the debris and see what it's made of and what it looks like in the communications. Obviously, there was some sort of propulsion system that was driving that vehicle. And don't forget, NORAD with Doppler radar is probably going back and looking at where it came from and see if they can track it back to, I don't know, China, Russia, wherever. But it's a great mystery. I'm absolutely fascinated by this.
Yeah, I mean, one U.S. official tells us there was no obvious surveillance equipment on board. Some of this is the initial information, initial reporting that comes in, and I suppose things change as they assess what they have on the ground or on the ice there. What does that tell you if that ends up being the case?
Well, there's a couple of things that I take away from this, and if it's a foreign-made object and it was sent from a place like China or Russia, it's some sort of provocation against us. I can't imagine a vehicle like this would give the Chinese or the Russians a real intelligence advantage of collecting photographs or signals or things like that. But I think what bothers NORAD and the White House is these probes. We now know there was, a total of 5 balloons, Chinese balloons that have come over the United States. Why are the Chinese doing this? Who's ordering it? And why would you do it right before Blinken, the Secretary of State, is on his way to Beijing? That makes no sense to me. With the balloon, was the Chinese military struck out on its own? So all of these questions, analysts at the CIA and the White House are looking through this and trying to piece this together. Remember, these balloons are flying over 40 places across the world, these Chinese balloons, and there are a lot of aerial vehicles I've been involved in before we've never been able to identify. From radar, one we saw, I remember I was involved in, was going Mach 6, which made no sense at all to anybody. And eventually it was just shelved and we couldn't figure it out.
Wow. And I guess, the question that you're leading me to with the comments on China is that we have one of two situations, I suppose. One is they're just trying to provoke the U.S. to see what the response might be. The other would be that Xi and the military might not be on the same page.
So I should add again that this report here came from earlier today. I believe I'm not sure if this was posted before or after the news broke that China also is tracking one of these objects and shot one down. Actually, I'm unsure if they've already shot it down. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet by the PLA, if they shot whatever object they were tracking down yet or not. I could try to see if I can get anything official from the PLA about that from their press sources. However, I don't think that they shot the one down over China, and this video, I'm pretty sure, came before the news came out that they were looking to shoot down that object that they were tracking. Yeah, so they've said they've been preparing to shoot it down for hours. Yeah, I see reports going back 11 hours, saying that they were preparing to shoot down this object. Chinese authorities have reportedly spotted an unidentified flying object over the waters near a major naval base and were preparing to shoot it down, according to officials. Local maritime authorities in China's eastern Shandong province said they had spotted, quote, an unidentified flying object in the waters near coastal city of Rizhao. The state-run Global Times reported Sunday. Other outlets reported that the UFO was spotted near Qingdao, which is home to a Chinese naval base, a major naval base for the People's Liberation Army. A Marine Development Authority official told reporters that another Chinese news outlet, that relevant authorities were preparing to shoot down the object. The reported sighting comes days after American fighter jets shot down unidentified objects over Canada and another object over remote Alaska. And then, of course, today we have the object over Lake Huron here in Michigan, United States. So yeah, there's so from recent reports, I heard that they are still preparing to shoot down the object and that they haven't shot it down yet. However, that could have changed in the past hour or two, and we just don't have information on it yet. So again, we're still waiting on. Okay.
For continuing to tune in, we're going to hear from an update on that fourth object being shot down over the Great Lakes, Lake Huron, to be specific. Of course, I want to.
Okay, so again, we're waiting here for that Pentagon a press release. You can see a map actually here that Fox has up on screen, and I have a map that I'm going to be showing you guys. It's a little more in depth than this, but you see the Friday object shot down over Alaskan territories off those waters north of Alaska, or frozen water. They're currently still trying to recover that wreckage. February 4th, so about I'd say about 6 to 8 days ago, that Chinese spy craft was shot down off of Myrtle Beach here, South Carolina. Saturday, we had a radar anomaly detected in Montana. It's believed now that that object is what was shot down over Lake Huron. Hopefully we'll hear about that more in the press briefing here. Then, of course, you have the Saturday object shot down over Canada as well. Again, keyword here, object.
The Chinese spy craft was shot down off the coast of South
So again, this press briefing is about to go live here in a few moments, everyone. So we're going to watch this Pentagon press briefing here.
But no object was ultimately found. There was another object that was shot down over Lake Huron, over the Great Lakes. I want to put up this tweet from our Lucas Tomlinson as he continues on as the NORAD says the object shot down over Lake Huron connected to the object picked up on radar over.
So you can see again they're talking about this The radar anomaly which was detected last night over Montana has now been connected to that object shot down over Lake Huron. So again, we're still waiting for the Pentagon briefing here to go live.
Imagine they're still dealing with a lot of technology and making sure everyone gets their questions asked. So we're going to continue to listen to this one here on Live Now from Fox and hopefully hear it.
So this briefing, for everybody that doesn't know, is, I believe, an audio telephone briefing.
To listen in, and we'll take it to you as soon as it can, but obviously this is the map we're watching here. Pentagon update coming momentarily as the object was
okay,
shot
so I guess
down
we're still
Friday,
waiting
an
on
object
that.
was shot down on Saturday, and now an object shot down on Sunday. So this is the fourth.
So yeah, I'm going to keep the volume low until we can get that Pentagon update coming through for you guys. Balloon Expert Trust Me says, yeah, halftime is going to be mid-ad. James Austin again says that China has been saying that they have detected one for about 12 hours. Yeah, so it's so China is also tracking. Just for everybody that doesn't know, China is also tracking one of these objects currently. Kyle Witt says, Nemico, you're going to show the Pentagon briefing. Yes, we are waiting on that to start right now. It is about to start. If you are currently tuning in, guys, on the YouTube channel, thank you so much for stopping by today. Again, we are waiting for this Pentagon news briefing to begin. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like button. If I could get every one of you guys to hit that like button in the chat, it would mean a lot to me. It would help out a lot. If you guys could all go and smash. If you guys could shoot down the like button, it would be highly appreciated. Again, we are waiting for this Pentagon news briefing to start. We're going to listen in on that. We're going to listen in on that news briefing. And then after that, I'll start kind of diving into all of the different reports and videos. And I'll be showing you guys the map and kind of giving you a rundown of all of the events that have occurred over North American airspace. This map here kind of shows a little bit of it, but there are other reports that I have that I've added to our own map. HD Twisted says, I highly appreciate what you do, Nemico. I've been watching you since the Ukraine war started. Thank you so much, HD Twisted. That means a lot to me. Paul says, like button kill confirmed. Yeah, if I could get just 300 more of you quick to go and hit that like button, it'd be highly appreciated.
Just a reminder, everyone, please make sure that your mics are muted. Thank you.
I'm going to start a live chat poll here shortly. In the YouTube live chat, so we'll get that going here in just a few minutes.
We're about to start this press conference here on Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us as we slowly dive into this press conference here from the Pentagon on that fourth object being shot down over Lake Huron in Michigan. Let's get you out to this press conference here from the Pentagon on Live Now from Fox, live, raw, and unfiltered, as they are in this Zoom press conference.
It's a Zoom press conference, okay? Again, we're still waiting on this press conference here to get started here, guys, so just bear with us. Again, thank you to everybody that's tuning in this evening. We're about to get started here with this Pentagon press briefing, and then after that, I'm going to be going in and showing you guys all of the reports from all these separate objects. We'll be talking about what's going on right now with all of these different events that have occurred over the past 48 to 72 hours here, and we'll be breaking it all down for you guys here live on the show this evening. JB Boost says, anyone here that China also shot down a balloon? Nemico, are the balloons evading? We don't know that it's a balloon, JB. So the only thing to be confirmed a balloon were the 2 Chinese spy balloons which were shot down last week. Those were confirmed to be balloons.
Secretary Dalton on the net?
These are, again, the Pentagon is referring to them as objects.
How about General Van Herk?
Looks like the press briefing is starting now, so we'll go ahead and listen into that.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, please stand by. We'll have Assistant Secretary of Defense Dalton on the line, and in a moment, we'll get started.
You're just listening in as we slowly begin this press conference here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. We want to give you an update from the Pentagon on this fourth object being shot down on this Sunday. Let's listen in here on Live Now from Fox, if we can, from different people within the Department of Defense, including a general there, as they give us new details on information that were provided. Here is a look at the map we're currently looking at. Friday and Saturday, an object was shot down, of course, dating back to February 4th. So let's listen in here on Live Now from Fox.
Secretary Dalton, are you on the line?
Yes, hi, good evening.
Great, thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight, particularly so short notice and on Super Bowl Sunday here in the U.S., no less. In light of tonight's takedown of an airborne object over Lake Huron, Michigan, we wanted to ensure you had the latest information and also answer any questions you have in order to provide any additional context on NORAD's efforts to monitor, track, and appropriately address these kinds of objects. Joining us tonight is Assistant Secretary of Defense for Homeland Defense and Hemispheric Affairs, Melissa Dalton, and General Glenn Van Herk, Commander of North American Aerospace Defense Command and U.S. Northern Command. Today's discussion is on the record. I'll turn it over to Assistant Secretary Dalton, who will provide some brief comments, followed by General Van Herk, and then we'll take your questions. With that, over to you, Secretary Dalton.
Great. Thanks so much, Pat. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. We do aim to be transparent about our military operations, and so we wanted to provide an update on the most recent Homeland Defense operation that occurred this afternoon. I'm going to provide a brief overview and then turn to General Van Herk to provide an operational perspective as well. In light of the People's Republic of China balloon that we took down last Saturday, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, including enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in objects that we've detected over the past week. We also know that a range of entities, including countries, companies, research organizations, operate objects at these altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate research. That said, because we have not yet been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, we have acted out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and interests. The spy balloon from the PRC was, of course, different in that we knew precisely what it was. These most recent objects do not pose a kinetic military threat, but they're passed in proximity to sensitive DoD sites, and the altitude that they were flying could be a hazard to civilian aviation and thus raised concerns. Again, as we have said, we do not assess that the recent objects pose any direct threat to people on the ground, and we are laser focused on confirming their nature and purpose, including through intensive efforts to collect debris in the remote locations where they have landed after being shot down. We are in close coordination and cooperation with the Government of Canada, as well as through NORAD with the Canadian military. Thanks very much. Look forward to your questions, and I'll hand it over to General Van Herk.
Thanks, Secretary Dalton. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and provide you an update. Every day, North American Aerospace Defense Command and United States Northern Command monitor the approaches to North America and the United States of America across all domains. And yesterday evening, approximately 16:45 or 4:45 Eastern Time on 11 February, NORAD detected a radar contact in Canadian airspace, approximately 70 or so miles north of the United States border. We began tracking that radar contact, and it became clear it was unknown. Following normal NORAD procedures, it was not talking to the Federal Aviation Administration, no squawk, and approaching our air defense identification zone. I scrambled F-15 fighters from Portland, Oregon, along with a KC-135 tanker support from Fairchild Air Force Base, Washington, to go investigate, to identify what the radar contact was. At 1800 Eastern or 6 p.m. Eastern, the radar track crossed into the United States sovereign airspace. At 7:04 Eastern Time, the F-15s with their tanker support were on station to investigate. We continued to investigate, and what's important to point out, this is near dark, within a half hour, 45 minutes of dark. We continued to investigate to identify, locate the object. We were unsuccessful. It's also important to point out in this part of the United States, we did not have data link for queuing like we had before. Data link allows the radars on the ground to share information to the fighters airborne, allowing them to cue their sensors and their visual acuity in an attempt to visually identify the track. At sunset, we were unable to find the track. Also, our radar operators lost the track on radar, and the FAA was never tracking the radar. Therefore, that's why we called it an anomaly, because we weren't able to identify it. Several hours later, overnight, we began seeing an intermittent radar contact east of the position in Montana as it approached Wisconsin. At that point, we developed a game plan once we started seeing another radar contact to go investigate. It's likely, but we have not confirmed that the track that we saw in Wisconsin was likely the same track in Montana. We elected to scramble with the best position to intercept if we needed to engage with the lowest collateral damage, and that was in the eastern portion of Wisconsin, just prior to Lake Michigan, when the fighters became on the track of interest at that time. We monitored the track of interest as it passed over Lake Michigan. We assessed that it was no threat, physical threat, military threat, legal infrastructure. That's my assessment. It continues to be today. However, at this point, we still have an unknown, and it forces a broader discussion about what is this object that's in our U.S. Sovereign airspace. It's within our Federal Aviation Administration airspace, not providing any communications, not providing any notice that could potentially help us deconflict. And therefore, we wanted to investigate further. We did. It tracked across the upper peninsula of Michigan. We were cleared to engage the target in eastern upper peninsula of Michigan, overland, and ultimately down the object at this point, about 15 nautical miles east of the upper peninsula in Lake Huron. What we saw is an object that began drifting, potentially most likely landed in Canadian waters in Lake Huron. And we have ongoing recovery operations with Coast Guard assets moving towards this area. I would like to highlight this entire time. I remained in contact with my Canadian boss, General Wayne Eyre. The Canadians were very supportive. The Canadians launched 2 F-18s plus their tanker as well to support this operation. The fighters were from Madison, Wisconsin, Air National Guard unit. We utilized a tanker from Pittsburgh Air National Guard, and we had an AWACS on station from Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. That's all I have for my operational update, and I look forward to your questions.
Secretary Dalton, General Van Herk, thank you both. For our first question, we'll go to Associated Press, Tara Kopp.
Hi, thank you very much, both of you, for doing this at this late hour. For Secretary Dalton and for General Van Herk, we've had 4 shoot downs in the last 8 days. Can you talk about the sense of concern you have, and should Americans be worried? This is a very rare thing to have this many shoot downs or any shoot downs over U.S. airspace. And then secondly, General Van Herk, can you give us any indication of what your pilots are seeing and reporting? Thanks.
Hey, before we jump into the question, just a reminder, everyone, please mute your phones. Thank you. Sounds like we have an open mic out there. My apologies. Over to you, ma'am.
Great. Tara, thanks so much for the question and for dialing in also at a late hour. The safety and security of the American people are job number one for us at the Department of Defense, and certainly for NORAD and General Van Herk's team. We, following the track of the PRC balloon last week, as I mentioned at the top, we have been more closely scrutinizing our airspace at these altitudes, enhancing our radar, which may at least partly explain the increase in the objects detected. But we also know that there are a range of entities out there, whether they're private companies, research organizations, that operate objects at these altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate research. But because we have not been able to definitively assess what these recent objects are, the president wanted to act out of an abundance of caution to protect our security and our interests. So we will remain vigilant. We have made these enhancements to our radars, and the operations this past week have been successful in bringing down these potential threats. And we are hard at work now recovering the debris to better understand certainly the capabilities of the surveillance balloon from the PRC, but also the nature of these unidentified objects to better understand, were they surveillance objects, what was their purpose, what are their capabilities, and we look forward to sharing more as we learn more in the coming days.
Thanks, Melissa. Let me just add on. So your question was about citizens being considered. I've assessed all of these to be non-kinetic threats to the homeland. And I don't see that changing even when we recover debris. Every day, NORAD, United States Northern Command, are ready to defend, deter as required. So I think this is a story where we were successful in detecting and if needed, to respond. What I would tell you is what we're seeing is very, very small objects that produce a very, very low radar cross section. I'm not going to go into detail about shapes or anything like that, really, because it's really, really difficult for pilots at the altitudes we're operating. It's a very, very slow object in the space, if you will, going at the speed of the wind, essentially. And our pilots are going several hundred miles per hour to give us what I would consider a factual, scientific-based description of what we see. And therefore, I'm hesitant to tell you that. With that being said, I would like to talk about the radar and the challenges that we face, something going this slow. So as Assistant Secretary Dalton talked about, radars essentially filter out information based on speed. So you can set various gates, we call them velocity gates, that allow us to filter out low speed clutter. So if you had radars on all the time that we're looking at anything from 0 speed up to, say, 100, you would see a lot more information. We have adjusted some of those gates to give us better fidelity on seeing slower objects. You can also filter out by altitude. And so with some adjustments, we've been able to get a better categorization of radar tracks now. And that's why I think you're seeing these overall. Plus, there's a heightened alert to look for this information. I hope that adds additional clarification.
Just one quick follow-up. 4 shoot downs in 8 days. When was the last time that U.S. fighters were scrambled and shot something down over U.S. airspace? I can't remember anything. And it just seems like there's a large and quick escalation to shooting down objects.
I'll have to get with our historians. I believe this is the first time within United States of America airspace that NORAD or United States Northern Command has taken kinetic action against an airborne object.
Thank you, Tar. Thank you, sir, ma'am. Let's go to Jen Griffin, Fox News.
Hey, thanks, Pat. This is Liz. I'll be asking for Jen today. Are these balloons that have been shot down since Friday, or are they weather balloons?
You want me to take
Thanks
that?
very much for the question. Yep, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, so I'm not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason. Certainly the event off the South Carolina coast for the Chinese spy balloon, that was clearly a balloon. These are objects. I am not able to categorize how they stay aloft. It could be a gaseous type of balloon inside a structure, or it could be some type of a propulsion system. But clearly, they're they're able to stay aloft. I would be hesitant to and urge you not to attribute it to any specific country. We don't know. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Nancy Youssef, Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. To both of you, you're saying that their preliminary assessment is that they don't pose a kinetic threat, but that they are objects and not balloons, and that you need to sort of adjust your radar. And I guess I'm trying to get an understanding, what is the expectation going forward, or at least in the next few days? Is it your plan to continue to shoot these down, or to make adjustments such that you can make assessments better, that they don't always have to happen when you're shooting something down? I'm trying to get a sense of the adjustment, General Van Herk, that you referred to, and what that will look like, practically speaking, in the days ahead. Thank you.
Nancy, thanks for the question. So the expectation going forward is we'll continue to doing our mission exactly like we've been doing now, approaching 65 years for NORAD. If there's an unknown object that enters either Canadian or U.S. airspace, we will go out, we will attempt to identify it. If it's a threat, kinetic threat, military threat, I am delegated the authority if it commits a hostile act or hostile intent. And let me describe a hostile act. Hostile act would be shooting a missile, dropping a bomb, taking aggressive action. A hostile intent would be maneuvering to an offensive position against our forces or something like that. In that situation, I'm cleared directly to engage without further permission. In this case, there is no hostile act or hostile intent, but it is an unknown object, and therefore we have to have a further discussion across the government, both the government of Canada in some cases and the government of the United States, to assess, is it a risk to national security by passing over key covered facilities such as our missile fields and other structure? Is it a risk to flight safety? Is it a risk to personnel on the ground? And then if you're going to take action, you have to make an assessment of what is the risk of collateral damage to potentially boats and mariners out over the water, our infrastructure, and people on the ground. That's essentially the process you go to and have to go through. And we've done that on each one of these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to David Martin, CBS.
You say that this is the first time we've ever had shoot downs, at least as to the best of your memory. But has any of this happened before the Chinese balloon was discovered? Have there been these unidentified objects which have been tracked for a while and then left U.S. airspace, but have entered and for one reason or another were not, what should I say, prosecuted like you've been doing these, the ones since the Chinese balloon?
Yeah, David, so great question. Thanks for that. So we have scrambled in the past against radar tracks that we've been unable to correlate with fighters. That has happened over years. And sometimes it's attributed to potentially being birds. Sometimes it's been attributed to weather. Sometimes we don't know what to attribute it to. What I would say is you go back and look over time, we've been able to figure out the best way to track various sources, including the high altitude balloons that we've talked about recently back to 2019 and prior. And couple that with our adjustments of our radar, it gives us a better ability to detect and have better domain awareness, as you've heard me talk about. I don't know if Secretary Dalton wants to add anything to that.
Thank you very much, General Van Herk. I would just add to that as we learn more about these objects, and certainly the PRC balloon, we're going to enhance our understanding of the characteristics of them that will perhaps enable us to look back at prior instances that were potentially overlooked or weren't looked closely enough at, to see if there's a comparison to be made there, and certainly will help us going forward to better identify and track these types of objects and balloons.
Have you reached the object that went down off northern Alaska?
David, we're actively searching for that object right now. I've got a Navy P-8, which is surveilling the area with helicopters as well. Once we locate that object, we'll put an Arctic security package in there and begin the analysis and recovery, but we don't have it right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Courtney Cubey, NBC.
Hi, thanks. How are you so confident that the initial balloon was Chinese? Were there some markings on it? I'm trying to figure out why, because from very early on, it seemed that there was a real confidence versus these last three that we can't get any sense of who owns them or what they were doing.
Thanks, Courtney.
Some sort of emergency press
Oh.
briefing that's supposed to take place now.
Hey, we have a hot mic out there. Go ahead, Secretary.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, thank you. So, Courtney, for the PRC balloon, we had a basis in intelligence to know definitively that its point of origin was the People's Republic of China.
So what I'm struggling with now is these last three that we still are calling objects. We don't know what they are. You knew that the Chinese one was surveilling, and potentially you knew who it belonged to, and yet there was no effort to there was a decision not to take it down until it was over the ocean. I understand that there was concerns about everything on the ground there, but can someone explain why the decision is made to take these last three unknown objects? We don't know who they belong to. We don't know what they're doing. But I still don't quite understand why the decision was made to literally in succession. It seems like they're being taken down faster and faster and faster. I mean, is there some other concern or threat that you're tracking that is giving a heightened sense of need to take these down?
Courtney, thank you. The process that General Van Herk described earlier in terms of the criteria that we work through to determine whether these objects, or in the case of the PRC balloon, the balloon was a threat. We look to see if it's going to pose a kinetic military threat. In both cases, that was not the case. We look to see, is it surveilling potentially DoD sensitive sites. We knew that was the case in both instances, and it was even more concerning in the case of the PRC balloon because we knew that it was a PRC balloon. We also consider, is it a threat to civilian aviation? In the case of the PRC balloon, it was flying at an altitude that it did not pose a threat to civilian aviation. And so that was part of the criteria for bringing it down over the water when we could safely do so, in addition to its enormous size. It was 200 feet tall. Payload was the size of 3 school buses. And, for these unidentified objects being much smaller, but unfortunately flying at an altitude that did pose a risk potentially to safe civilian aviation, that was part of the criteria that went into deciding to take the objects down over the last 3 days sooner in the tracking cycle. So, that's the process that we have rigorously worked through over the last week. General Van Herk, anything you want to add?
No, Melissa, I think you're right on. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Let's go to Brent Dahlberg, Michigan Radio.
Hi, thanks. A missile seems like a particularly destructive weapon to be using if there's a desire to investigate and figure out what these are afterwards. Can you explain why, explain the weapon's choice?
Absolutely. Melissa, if you don't mind, I'll take this one. So, first of all, maintaining a radar track on an object this small is very hard. So, taking a radar shot, such as an AIM-120, would be a lower probability of success. We assessed taking a gunshot yesterday in that event, as well as today. And the pilots in each situation felt that was really unachievable because of the size, especially yesterday in the altitude, and also because of the challenge to acquire it visually because it's so small. It's also potentially a safety of flight issue because you have to get so close to the object before you see it that you potentially could fly into the debris or the actual object. Therefore, in each situation, the AIM-9X, a heat-seeking missile or infrared missile that sees contrast, has been the weapons of choice against the objects which we've been seeing. In each case, we have taken extreme caution to ensure that we limit potential collateral damage. So today, we work closely with the FAA to clear out the airspace. I gave directions specifically to the pilots to use their visual acuity to check for mariners on the ground, airplanes in the air, to clear with their radars as well. And when they were comfortable that we could minimize collateral damage, they selected the best weapon today. That was the AIM-9X, and they took the shot.
Thank you. Let's go to Helene Cooper, New York Times.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials, and if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Oren Lieberman, CNN.
Thanks for doing this. Are you currently tracking other unidentified objects in U.S. airspace? And you've now shot down 3 objects in 3 days. Are we to believe these are the first 3 unidentified objects in U.S. airspace, or do you believe there are dozens or potentially hundreds of other such objects that have flown through U.S. airspace? And have any of these recent objects interfered with pilot sensors? Thank you.
Yeah, for your last question, I'm not going to talk about the sensors and what we've seen. If you don't mind, that needs to come out through the intel communities and what we've seen. I'm not currently tracking any other objects at this point. That doesn't mean there couldn't be more at some point in the future, but right now we're not seeing anything. As far as, why previously, I don't know if there was more. We do know after the fact that there was high altitude balloons because we went back and we were able to reconstruct that. As far as these specific objects at this time, I'm unaware to say. It's certainly possible, but I don't have the fidelity to give you the answer. We will go look at the data to see if we can figure anything out about the potential for not seeing these previously.
Thank you. Let's go to Phil Stewart. Phil Stewart, Reuters.
Hey there. I just want to double check what exactly. I know you talked about the fact that we weren't looking for slower speed aircraft and that these objects had a lower radar cross section. But could you just kind of explain to us what makes these objects in particular more difficult to track, or why you weren't tracking them before? And I guess the other question I think everybody's kind of wondering is, now that you've tweaked everything, should the American public be expecting, lots more shoot downs? Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. What makes them really hard to detect and track is their size and potentially shape. We'll get our hands on them at some point. I can't confirm that right now, but that could certainly play a rule or a factor in this. As far as going forward, I'll go back to my mission is to defend our homeland in both my NORAD and NORTHCOM hat. Anything that approaches North America, if it's unknown, I'm going to go identify it and assess, is it a threat? If it is a threat, I'll shoot it down. If it's not a threat, the kinetic military threat that we talked about earlier, it's not committing a hostile act or hostile intent, then we'll have a broader discussion. Your second part of that is really about what are we going to do in the future is really a policy decision. I'll ask Secretary Dalton if she wants to add anything.
I'd only add again that the safety and security of the American people is job number one for us. And for any of these operations, we fine-tune them to ensure that there's going to be little to no collateral damage. None of the operations over the last week have resulted in collateral damage.
Secretary Dalton, could you just explain then? Do we expect that there's been a policy decision that will lead us to near daily shoot downs as we detect these things more and more?
Bill, thank you. We are taking this very much on a case by case basis. Each operation has been different. And we will certainly keep you updated as we continue to learn more about these objects and the PRC balloon and what that means for us going forward.
Thank you. Let's go to Ben Brash, Washington Post.
Thank you very much, both, for taking the time. More directly, and in reference to the last question, is it our policy or a preference of the United States government still to not shoot down anything over U.S. territory? When is it that you make that call? I know you talked about assessing if anything was a kinetic threat, but is it policy or preference? Thank you very much.
The policy is to defend the United States and its sovereign territory and airspace. We'll stop.
Thank you. We have time for just a few more. Let's go to Dimitri Sevaspalo, Financial Times.
Thanks very much, Pat. Two questions. At this point, are you able to assess that the three objects over Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron, are they similar objects as far as you can tell? And then secondly, the Biden administration has said that it realized this was a problem last year. It briefed Congress in August. So I'm curious, why didn't you recalibrate the gateways on the radar systems earlier if you knew that Chinese balloons were an issue at that point?
Yeah, let me talk about this. So the way I would characterize similar, they're similar in size, similar in speeds that go with the wind on these objects that we've seen. As far as specific shapes, we've got to get our hands on those to see fidelity and detail of shape, how they get airborne, do they have propulsion? All of those things are still to be determined. Your second part of that question, remind me what that was.
So you said that recently the reason you may be detecting more things is you recalibrated or changed the thresholds for gateways on the radar systems. I wonder, given that you briefed, not you, but the administration briefed Congress on the Chinese balloon program last August, why were gateways not changed back then?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The timing of the intel and adjustments, what I would say is we didn't necessarily see a need to change a thing. The Chinese high altitude balloon alerted us to the speed, the slowness, and being able to detect. We decided to do that at that time. I hope that makes sense to you.
But
I would just add,
given that there were questions about the program, as early as August last year, and those balloons were flying at those kind of speeds then, was there not a discussion about changing the gateways back then?
I can perhaps help here as well. So the briefings to Congress last year were done, I believe, through intelligence channels. And again, that was intelligence that was better understood retrospectively based on elements of the equation that were discovered after the fact. And then the high altitude balloon from the PRC that was shot down last weekend was categorically different than the prior high altitude balloons because it transited the entire continental United States, starting with Alaska, across Canada, and across CONUS. And so it was quite different than the prior instances. And on that basis, we determined that we needed to enhance our radar.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for just two more questions here. We'll go to Peter Martin, Bloomberg.
Hi, thanks very much for doing this. I wanted to ask, has Secretary Austin talked yet with Weifeng He from the PRC about the first balloon? And then in addition, has DoD communicated with the Chinese military at any level about any of these subsequent objects? Thank you.
Thank you. There have been contacts made with the PRC on the high altitude balloon.
Thank you very much. And final question will go to Brian Everstein, Aviation Week.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this. Back to the discussion on the AIM-9X. Can you talk about what about these objects gave off enough heat signature for the IR seeker without any sort of propulsion system? And secondly, the F-16 presumably has a targeting pod. I assume you had eyes on from other aircraft. Will the Pentagon be releasing any of these images?
I'll let policy decide on the images. That's not mine. But the AIM-9X, first, I would make an assumption there wasn't a propulsion system or there was. What I would say is what you have is a contrast between the environment and the objects themselves, which gives often IR contrast, which allows the missile to track. And that's been very, very effective for the AIM-9X. Melissa, over to you on the releasing of photos.
Thank you. We absolutely want to be transparent about our military operations and what we are learning about these objects and the PRC high altitude balloon, and hope to share more in the coming days.
My apologies. I had one last question here to Nick Slayton, Task and Purpose, and that will be our final question.
Thank you. I wanted to see, when we talk about investigating the debris of this, who's taking the lead on that? Is that the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office? And then also, we've seen free shoot downs and free days. If this was to continue, if this pace of operations was to continue, is that proving to be would that be a strain on units, or are all units able to handle these kind of rapid scramblings in that regard? Thank you.
Melissa, you want that, or you want me to take it?
You go right ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So as far as the recovery lead, technically, the FBI has the lead under counterintelligence authorities. They are embedded with DoD because we have the resources to enable them to conduct the operations. In Canada, the Canadians have the lead. Their Royal Canadian Mounted Police are embedded with their Canadian Special Operations Forces, and we have the FBI forces as well, liaison with them to make sure that we're sharing as much info as possible.
Thank you.
Secretary Dalton, General Van Herk, thank you both very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for this evening. Thank you again for joining us. We will be posting a transcript to defense.gov once it's available.
You're just listening in there to the Pentagon press briefing here as we learn.
All right, guys. So we just heard that Pentagon press briefing live about the object shot down over Lake Huron, Michigan here, United States. And they also kind of gave some details about some of the other objects shot down. Very few details, but details nonetheless about those objects that were shot down over both U.S. and Canadian territory there. So, a few things to note right off the bat. They would not confirm what the objects were. They would not confirm where their origin was. They were reluctant to refer to them as balloons, using the terminology objects. They referred to them as objects. So again, kind of leaving more questions than answers from that press briefing there. They did mention, one thing that's been talked about quite a bit, and they did mention this, is that since the Chinese balloon object, they have kind of dialed in their radar, so to speak, so that they can identify more of these objects in our airspace. What's interesting, what I found really interesting, was that they mentioned that this is the first time that the U.S. Has had to shoot down objects like this over U.S. territory. This is the first time they've had to do that, as that general said, in recent memory. So I think I find that the most interesting, is that they are admitting this is the first time that they've seen a spur of activity like this, where they need to scramble jets on multiple occasions to shoot down these objects. Another thing I found interesting was, again, their use of the terminology calling these instances like objects. They're referring to them as objects, being very reluctant to say what exactly they are. Another thing I found very interesting is they were very reluctant to talk about the reports that these objects had been interfering with sensors on board these aircraft, which we did hear in multiple previous official reports from the U.S. government that during encounters with some of these objects, that there were some interesting anomalies, so to speak, with their instrumentation and with their sensors. Another thing which I found interesting is that they've connected the Montana radar anomaly, not 100% confirmed, but they kind of hinted at that they've connected it between that anomaly and the object shot down over Lake Huron earlier today. They talked about that they tracked that radar track for that Montana radar. That object that was spotted over Montana, I should say. Again, it was referred to last night as a radar anomaly, saying that there was no object located, even though there were multiple officials, coming out and saying that there was for sure an object in the airspace above Montana. So it was tracked eastbound, again over Wisconsin, then over the upper peninsula of Michigan, and then again was shot down about 15 nautical miles off the eastern tip of the upper peninsula of Michigan, where you see the Object 3 listed on the map on your screen currently. Patty Wax says Nemico should have been on the line asking questions. I was thinking that the entire time. There was a million questions I would have loved to have had the opportunity to ask. Maybe someday we'll be able to get in on a Pentagon press briefing. So yeah, very interesting there. Again, posed more questions than I think we have answers. Than we got answers from this this press briefing here. Very interesting. Again, they were one big question that I saw asked was, will the imaging from those targeting pods, from those FLIR systems, will they be releasing that information, that data? And I would have really liked to see images from these objects shown on screen right away. During these press briefings, they should have, released some information, on defense.gov or somewhere, showing what these objects look like. Because, earlier in the report, they're talking about how it was really hard for these pilots to get eyes on because they're moving so fast, and these objects were moving slower than the aircraft, etc. But I think what they failed to mention was that these targeting pods have extremely sophisticated imaging hardware. Okay, they can get good imagery at a distance while moving at high speed. I don't know if any of you have seen the gimbal videos, the Tic Tac videos, but they are capable of tracking objects, locking onto these objects with this imagery hardware. All right, and being able to take imagery of these objects in multiple spectrums, so thermal, IR, etc. So. I think that is probably one of the most interesting takeaways here is that they do have the capability to take images of whatever these objects are, which you would think would help them in identifying them. Again, so it's very peculiar, kind of the wording that they used, the questions that they were very reluctant to answer. We have a live chat poll, which I put out during the briefing over on our YouTube live chat. If you guys want to go hop over onto the YouTube live chat and answer that poll. Tonight's poll question is, what do you think these objects are that have been shot down over Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron? Your options are option number 1, Chinese drones and balloons, currently sitting at about 41% of the vote. Second option is Russian drones / balloons, which I thought actually is more likely, but only 10% of you guys believe that they are Russian drones and balloons. 3% of you think they are weather balloons, and a whopping majority total of 46% of you say other. So again, it could be anything else, that other option. 46% of you. So the majority think that other is the explanation here. I'm not going to go into specifics. But I found, as I'm sitting here, we're now up to 47% in the other category. Thank you guys for going and voting in that poll. I'll be capping off the vote in a few hundred votes here. So if you haven't already, go over there. Submit your vote in the live chat poll on the YouTube channel. We'll talk about the results towards the end of the show. If you guys are just tuning in, thank you so much for stopping by this evening. If you haven't already, I know there's over half of you in the live chat right now that have not hit that like button. If you guys could stop what you're doing, hit that like button, it would be immensely helpful to what we're doing here, and I would appreciate it very, very much so. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. It's the best way to get access to the live chat over on the YouTube channel there. You could join the live chat once you subscribe, and also it's the best way to support the channel is by hitting that subscribe button, helping this information, get out into the hands of more people. Speaking of which, if you like the stream, share it. Show this reporting to other people. Help spread the word. Again, I thank everybody for taking some time out of their day to be here with us and get in the know about what's going on in the world. And right now, what's going on in our backyard for all of us here in the United States and Canada. Again, this is not usually the type of content we cover here on the channel. We're usually covering things like the global security threats which we face in our modern day, things like the ongoing war in Ukraine, things like the possible invasion of Taiwan by China. We cover a lot of those topics here on the channel, and this past week has been pretty crazy. Everything from first it was Chinese spy balloons, and now we are tracking all sorts of unidentified objects in our airspace. And again, 1 minute something's being shot down over Alaska, and hours later we got another report of something over Canada, and then all of a sudden you have radar anomalies over Montana, and we have spy balloons, and again today I wake up and all of a sudden there's another object over Lake Huron that's being shot down. So again, it's been a very chaotic, a very full news cycle, so to speak, this past few days. But again, I thank everybody for tuning in this evening and hanging out with us here. So next up, what we're going to do is, I guess I will kind of take you through the map here. We'll kind of break things down for everybody that's just tuning in. So on screen here, you have we have kind of a breakdown of all of the objects that have been shot down. So let's do a chronological order here from first objects spotted and shot down to the most recent events. So first, you had the spy balloon. Spy balloon number 1 here, shot down off of the east coast of the United States, off of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That was last week that this occurred, and that balloon was first spotted on radar over China. It then came under the Sea of Japan, up into Alaska. I don't know if you guys could see my cursor here on screen. Up through the, I believe it's called the Aleutian Islands here, into Alaska, and then down through Canada, over Montana. Don't mistake that for the Montana radar anomaly. That's another event here, which I'll get to in just a second. It then traversed over the United States, where it was then subsequently shut down off the east coast of the United States. Meanwhile, the U.S. government had confirmed that a second spy balloon was spotted over Latin America. Again, it's the location. I have the icon here on the map is not correct because it doesn't show the entirety of Latin America on this map, so just bear with that. But nonetheless, this represents that other balloon that was identified and confirmed to be flying over Latin America. It was reported that balloon, quote, disappeared, and I don't believe it was subsequently shot down. Fast forward to Friday, actually Thursday night, I should say. An object was spotted by NORAD on radar, hovering over Alaska. F-22s and I believe even at one point F-35s were scrambled in order to locate, track down, and identify this object. Multiple sorties were flown to identify this object, and both were unsuccessful in identifying what this exactly was. Friday morning, I believe it was, or possibly Friday evening, they sent out F-22s armed with AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles to shoot down this object over Alaska here. It was shot down just north of Alaska in frozen territorial waters off the coast, okay? So the debris from this object is sitting on sea ice. They're using helicopters to retrieve this wreckage, okay? And as of this report right now, they are still currently tracking down and recovering that wreckage for that first object shot down over Alaska. Why this first object is significant. This object was seen hovering over certain energy infrastructure sites in northern Alaska. There were certain sites that it was hovering over that kind of caused a degree of alarm, so to speak here. Also, I should note that the recovery for this object is quite difficult. Again, as I just mentioned, they're using helicopters to recover that wreckage of that object. There's been no publicly released photos or any type of official imagery or anything like that showing what this object was that was shot down over Alaska. Fast forward about 8 to 10 hours, and another object was spotted on radar and subsequently shot down over Yukon, Canada, with collaboration between the Canadian government and the United States military. They shot down this second object. From most recent report, the Canadians were planning a recovery mission of that second object, but have not begun recovery of that object yet. But it is either just getting underway now as I bring you this report, or will be that recovery will be getting underway within the coming hours. Fast forward a few hours after that, last night we had a situation in Montana where air traffic was shut down. There was basically a ground order here in certain areas of Montana where they closed off the airspace for, quote, Department of Defense operations due to multiple radar anomalies which were spotted by NORAD on radar. Later that evening, the airspace was reopened after American fighter jets were unable to identify an object or even confirm that there was an object in that airspace to correlate to that radar ping. Shortly thereafter, multiple officials, both related to Montana government and Congress, came out and said that they were briefed there was indeed an object above Montana airspace, that they personally believe that there was still an object that was up there in that airspace, just that those military aircraft were unable to get a visual on that object. Fast forward to today. Again, you just heard the Pentagon press briefing there. Another object, a third unidentified object, was shot down after traversing over Wisconsin, from Montana over Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then 15 nautical miles off of the UP of Michigan over Lake Huron. Again, that's where they shot down that third object. All three of these objects were shot down with AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles here. So using all of the same weapon systems for these to shoot down these unidentified objects. Cameron mentions in the live chat, says no visible propulsion mechanism. So that was confirmed. There were no visible propulsion systems keeping these aircraft aloft. Cameron also says, and it interfered with the F-22's instrument system. So yeah, we've had multiple reports, and we even heard some of the reporters asking questions about this during that briefing, saying, "Hey, what's up with these reports about these unidentified objects interfering with some certain sensors on these aircraft?" And they didn't give any explanation. They basically refused to comment on that. And another thing that, when asked about the imagery from these targeting pods and cameras, they kind of were reluctant to give any information on if or even when they'd be releasing that sort of data to us. And then again, also, I should mention on the map, we have off on the left side of the map here, we have the Hawaii laser incident, which occurred last week as well. Semi-unrelated, but noteworthy, and that's why we have it on this map here. For those of you that don't know, a suspected Chinese satellite, I don't know if it would be scanned certain areas in Hawaii using some sort of laser system. The details are pretty sparse and kind of conflicting reports on what exactly happened there with that event that occurred last week. But it kind of correlates, especially when with the activity from the spy balloons, and then now these 3 newest objects, again, which we have here on the map on screen. So again, thank you to everybody that's tuning in this evening. We just witnessed that Pentagon briefing. I'm now going to we're gonna go through some videos from some other news agencies here and just see. Again, this talks about the Alaska incident, and then the Yukon incident, and then the Lake Huron incident in a row here. Just kind of showing you guys the reports as they were brought to us, as they unfolded live, as these mainstream news outlets started to report on this activity, kind of what they were saying about these events as they occurred. Let me get over to our main screen here. So